Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our ARPA workshop, July 10th, 2024. The time is now 6:10. Madam Clerk, roll call.
Commissioner Bass? Vice Mayor Irvin?
Here.
Commissioner Kelly?
Present.
Commissioner Williams?
Here.
Mayor Taylor?
Here. As we stand for our invocation and our pledge of allegiance. Led by Commissioner Kelly.
Eternal God, our Father, we thank you for this day. We thank you, God, for all of your many blessings. Continue to watch over this city. Give us the wisdom, knowledge, and understanding to those things which are pleasing in your sight. In Jesus' name we do pray. Amen.
Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, we're getting ready to go into our public comments. And those that are speaking on public comments, we ask that you stay germane to the topic at hand. Public comments is open. Public comments are closed. We're going to turn it over into the hands of the manager's office to give us our opera workshop, American Rescue Plan Act grant funds. I'm sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If we could pull up the presentation, please. So I trust you all have your packages. We did a more extensive, as requested, we did a more extensive presentation to walk you through each project individually. And as soon as that project comes up, I will guide you through the items. And if there's any specific questions that we need to stop, if there's a particular director, we'll call that director up to answer any more in-depth questions. Excellent. So this is our ARPA funds distribution and expenditures workshop, July 10th, 2024. Next slide. And here is our agenda, which we're going to go over the guidelines for ARPA that determine how and which projects may be utilized for these particular funds, the rules and the regulations, then go over the expenditures. Subsequently, item 4, we'll go over the community selected projects. Again, these are projects that the commission directed administration to put out to the public and make them make their selections on. And then finally, the recommended capital projects. These are the same projects that have been presented in 2022, and we're here to give you a more in-depth presentation. And before we encumber these projects, encumber these funds, if they have to be encumbered by December 31st, 2024 of this year, we want to give the commission the opportunity to make any recommendations or any changes. Next slide. In 2021, the city was assigned funds, approximately $8 million through the state and local fiscal recovery funds program authorized by ARPA, the American Rescue Plan Act. Next slide. So we studied what other cities were doing. Since this was a new project, a lot of people jumped out there, and then some of them, like the city of Opa-locka, we kind of held back to make sure what we understood what our left and right lateral limits are. So through ARPA, recipient governments across the countries are investing these funds to address the unique needs of their communities. Obviously, with the $100 million need in infrastructure, our recommendation as discussed with the commission is to work on some of our infrastructure to prevent some of the flooding and sewer issues that we've had. Also to fight the pandemic and support families and businesses, maintain our vital public services amid declines in revenue resulting from the crisis, and build a strong, resilient, and equitable recovery by making investments that support long-term growth and opportunity. Recipient governments may use ARPA to one, replace lost public sector revenue, respond to the far-reaching public health and negative economic impacts of the pandemic, provide premium pay for essential workers, invest in water, sewer, and broadband infrastructure, a great need of the city of Opa-locka, provide emergency relief from natural disasters or their negative economic impacts, which we've utilized that for the mortgage program, mortgage assistance program, and rental assistance program, support surface transportation projects utilizing funds for eligible projects, and support projects that are eligible activities under the Community Development Block Grant. Next slide. Now, how are those ARPA allocations made and how much is done? Population is one criteria, a significant factor in determining the allocation was the population of each city. Our current population has been slightly on the decline over the last few years and shuttling around 16,400 residents to about approximately 16,000 residents. The Treasury Department utilized population data from the Census Bureau, specifically from the 2019 census population estimates to allocate these funds. Formula calculation, the exact formula used by the Treasury Department involved a base amount plus and an additional amount based on the city's population size. The base amount ensured that even smaller cities, such as City of Opa-locka, received a minimum allocation, while larger cities received proportionally more based on their population. Next slide. There are some key guidelines associated with ARPA distributions. So the rules for local governments that received under $10 million thresholds, which the city of Opa-locka is, we received approximately just under $8 million, generally focus on how these funds can be utilized and managed. Authorized uses. Local governments can use ARPA funds to cover costs related to responding to the COVID-19 public health emergency or its negative economic impacts. This includes, but is not limited to, providing assistance to households, small businesses, and nonprofits affected by the pandemic, which is certainly one of the things that we're utilizing the monies for, with small business grants, rental assistance, and mortgage assistance, supporting essential workers, providing government services that were cut due to revenue declining during the pandemic, making necessary investments in water, sewer, or broadband infrastructure, another need for the city of Opa-locka. Key guidelines associated with ARPA distributions. Funds management, a very, very important one. Local governments are expected to manage these funds prudently, ensuring they are used for eligible purposes and adhering to federal guidelines on transparency and reporting. Reporting requirements, as we discussed several times, there are several reporting requirements that, based on our size and the amount of our allocation, that we must adhere to. Compliance with federal regulations and reporting requirements is essential. You have to follow these requirements letter to the law so that we do not run the risk of having to return any of these funds. Deadline. Funds must be spent by specified deadline. For instance, under certain circumstances, local governments had until December 31st, 2024 to obligate their funds, December 31st, 2026 to spend them. And we actually fall under those guidelines. ARPA funding distribution. So how are we breaking down and proposing to spend our $8 million? So currently we spent less than $8,000 on consulting fees. This is a team that we put out for RFP that responds to a point of contact in the city, which is Mr. Anathan, with regard to, he presents them each project, and the procurement process is determined, is this a usable, can these funds be utilized for this particular project? And they provide those consulting services to him. Roadway and transportation projects is approximately 1.9 million. Water and sewer projects is the bulk, as we are aware, at approximately 5 million. And as the commission directed, we set aside approximately $1 million for community selected projects. So let's go through those community selected projects. And these are the projects that the residents selected to utilize the funds. Artscape. Artscape, we will, if approved by the commission, move forward on that after tonight. Allocated funds is $62,500. This was one that was in a tie, so its funds had to be split with the tree project as well, because it came in as a tie. We'll have a further discussion about this one tonight, but it's referred to integrating artistic installations and creative elements within public spaces such as sidewalks, murals, streets, plazas, and parks. When you really want to think about the Artscape project, you can think of some of the really artsy projects that you can find in the city of Miami, in Washington, D.C. We saw a lot of this with Black Lives Matters, where communities started utilizing art to express different aspects of its culture and its community. Also during the Obama administration, we saw a lot of artscape projects emerge that were referencing, political figures in Black history. Next slide. Next slide. And this slide is a really colorful, pretty slide, just to give an example of some of the things that other cities and other communities are doing. One particular thing about this project that we want to make unique to our RFP, or inclusive in our RFP, we should say, is that we're going to have the community involved in selecting what's going to be placed in the city and where. So they're going to be an active part of the community on those recommendations. They'll work with whoever the commission chooses as the winner of the RFP. Next slide. Again, the Artscape project came into a tie with the tree installation and swells restoration. So each one of those projects we split, giving them each $62,500. The presence of trees and swells plays a crucial role in both city beautification and stormwater management. But that's not just all. Trees improve the overall health of communities, and particularly for South Florida, they lower the heat index. So having a nice tree canopy in the city. Oh, and most importantly to a city manager, because we're always looking at how we can increase our revenue streams as they increase property values. So this is a great project that we're really excited that the residents chose, and we're looking to implement that. It's also part of green infrastructure and city beautification, as noted by Commissioner Williams. And we are excited to be moving forward on this particular project. Next slide, please. Siegel Park is one of the parks. Parks played a very important role in the community and their selection of what projects got what funding. And Siegel Park was a beneficiary of that with a $250,000 allocation awarded to them by the residents. So the things that we're looking to do with that money is expand the number of parking spaces to by 54 additional parking spaces at Siegel Park, improve the trails modifications. Right now, a lot of seniors are out there and the trails have some patches and holes into the ground, so we want to make it more safe for them. Add a drainage system, because during significant weather times, we find that portions of Siegel Parks get flooded, and we'd like to replace and update the fitness equipment. Okay. Rental mortgage eviction assistance. This is something that we've already been doing for some time. Next slide. This is a mirror program to also what's going on with the CRA. One of the things we always try to do is we're doing a program for residents. If the CRA is doing a program for the residents, or if we're doing a program for residents, we will always try to work with the CRA to match those programs, so that if someone's in the CRA and they apply for a benefit, outside the CRA, and they apply for a benefit and find that they live outside the CRA, they can come to the city and still get that program, right? Next slide. So I won't belabor with the requirements. It does seem like there's a lot of requirements here, but essentially everyone that is in the city of Opa-locka that can prove that they are in need of these money receive these funding. We've had very, very few denials, and it's usually beyond technical assistance to supporting documentation and paperwork. Next slide. So the assistance amount, rent assistance will not exceed 3 months of debts or a maximum of $3,000, whichever is lesser. Mortgage assistance will not exceed $6,000 maximum, or the amount due, whichever is the lesser. Eviction assistance will not exceed first, last, and deposit, or a maximum of $6,000, whichever is lesser. Right? Next slide. There are some maximum income limits here, if the commission wants to peruse those. Program results as of June 2024. Program allocation of $257,000. Disbursements amounts have been $245 to $3,000, which is the maximum. Number of residents assisted has been 177, and program expenditures as of June has been $241,246.98. Next slide. Another one of the community projects selected by the residents was small business grants. We're very, very excited to move this particular program forward. Next slide. Given a brief description, the allocation is $125,000. The program provides financial assistance to further the economic viability of recipients. Funding can be used to purchase inventory, supplies, business equipment, marketing, advertising, building expenses, business insurance, minor interior, external renovations, security systems, commercial property only, work vehicles, pickup trucks, or cargo vans must be registered to the business, not to the individual. Professional services such as a CPA, a business training, or business consultant, seminars or events, or commercial property lease or mortgage. So if a business is owned and operated in the city of Opa-locka, you can pretty much utilize these funds for any number of things to maintain your business here. Purpose of this program is to really not only welcome new business into the city, but to help the businesses that are already been established here. Next slide. Again, our purpose is to get these funds on the ground as quickly and as judiciously and expeditiously as possible. So although there may be a list of criteria here, you'll find that it's a matter of just checking the box and the funds will be dispersed. Have to meet the criteria, of course, which is the eligible use of funding, which I went through that. We have a pretty extensive list of things that they can utilize the funding for. Funding must be available, of course, and we're doing things on a first come, first served basis. Next slide. Of course, all businesses must be located in Opa-locka and meet the following criteria. Business must be in operation for at least 1 year, must be a for-profit business. A physical address is required, no PO box. Home-based businesses can apply. That was a significant change that we made from other cities that were doing this. So if you have a home business here, so long as you have an address and you've been in business for more than a year, you are also eligible for these funds. Automatic disqualification, businesses that relocate out of the city during the process, applicants submitted after the deadline, nonprofit agencies, more than one application submitted for the same owners or families or partners, and must not be part of a national chain. Okay. Next slide. This is once again reciting the eligible use of funds, which is pretty extensive. Some important things to note for those who are listening that are business owners here in the city of Opa-locka. Next slide. There are some things that the funds can't be used for. Rental deposits, late payment fees, purchase of alcohol, tobacco, or medicine, salaries. So you will not be able to pay worker salaries with that. Debts, property taxes, certainly can't. We certainly don't want you giving us our own money back if you owe us property taxes. County, city, or state license, and any and all others not listed in the eligible use above. Okay. Next slide. Again, the funding for this is $125,000. Funding available per business is up to $10,000 per business. Next slide. Next project selected by the residents was a fire station and HR building rehabilitation. We've gone back and forth extensively. That allocation is $250,000, and we are prepared to move that project forward with the number of challenges we've faced with the historic designation of the building, with the cost, with the damage to the building. But it'd be the will of the people, we will move that project forward. Next slide. Now, that concludes all of the projects that were selected by the residents in the workshop and are included in the package tonight. Next, we'll go through the infrastructure projects. Again, our infrastructure whole is approximately from the time I worked as the assistant city manager under Mr. Daughtry, and he took extensive looks at this to the time that I've been a city manager. I still estimate that our whole is about $100 million. That looks like a pretty big elephant, but how do you eat an elephant? By one bite at a time. So we throw what available funds we have. Of course, emergencies come up if a pipe bursts, if raw sewage leaks, or a pump station breaks, we have to address that immediately. And then we continue to do the work of laying down the sidewalks, putting in stormwater drainage, fixing cracks in our holes, and so that we can keep keep what infrastructure we have preserved. Next slide. Water and sewer infrastructure projects. These are predominantly from the Public Works Department and also from capital improvement projects. I'm going to go through the roster of list here first, and then we'll dive into these one by one. Northwest 135th Street, the water main there, that's been a consistent problem, and it's been something that we've been looking to attack since I've been here for the last 2 years. We've taken 2 attempts at it. This will be our third, and hopefully we hope that the flooding around Northwest 135th Street and that water main there will be solved. Rutland water main and meter relocation. Sesame Street water main relocation. Very excited about this project as it also facilitates us getting that bridge and that street reopened. Sewer smart covers telemetry system, a very, very technical project, but very, very necessary and needed one considering the extensive flooding that we have. We would be one of the first cities, and Miami-Dade County is really excited about working with us on these sewer smart covers, which actually alerts our Public Works Department as to the level of the waters and gives us time to get a head start to any particular damage where any damage is caused. As we've been discussing for the last 2 years, a number of our lift stations are in need of replacement. And that's an elephant in the room. And it's very important to keep our lift stations up and operating, because when a lift station goes down, Miami-Dade County issues what is called a moratorium. When a moratorium has been issued on a lift station, that means that the city manager is prohibited from allowing any new businesses to come into any area serviced by that pump station. So it's always really, really important for us to keep our pump stations up and operating. So we are taking an extensive look of how we can utilize these ARPA funds to make sure that we keep the city of Opa-locka open for business. Lift station number 4, relocation and replacement is one. Lift station number 9 is a replacement is in need. Lift station number 16 is also in need of replacement. So we selected 3 really, really high target pump stations out of our 19 pump stations that service the city of Opa-locka. North District water distribution, really important kind of political hot topic, because there are areas that we have to maintain that are outside our city limits. There are areas of unincorporated Miami-Dade County that are water customers of the city of Opa-locka, and there are areas of the city of Miami Gardens residents that are actually city of Opa-locka water customers. Northwest 133th Street sewer relocation is kind of in tandem with everything we're doing around Rutland and Northwest 135th Street. We're really taking a 3-pronged process of how we want to mitigate flooding in that area. That's the Mary Alice Apartments, formerly Aswan Village, lift stations and flow meters, and sewer system modeling. Next slide. I won't get too technical, but I do want to give a little bit of a dive as requested into these projects, these water and sewer projects, and hopefully I can say them in a way that keeps you excited and engaged without falling asleep. Northwest 135th Street water main. The projected cost of that is going to be approximately $500,000. We want to do a 1,200-foot section of 8-inch cast iron pipe. The calcification of the section of the pipe is resulting in severely diminished fire flows. And so we really believe that this last solution of installing this 1,200-foot section of 8-inch will resolve our issues there. Next slide. The Rutland water main and meter relocation. This 2-inch water main currently in the easement behind the properties, it is an original piece of infrastructure. Think about that. The city of Opa-locka, we're coming up on 100 years, and this is an original piece of infrastructure, which is calcified. And because it's calcified, it poses challenges to the utility at maintaining required chlorine levels. And we are on, as we all know, the city of Opa-locka is on the radar for the Florida Environmental Protection Department. So they're always testing our water and testing our facilities, water and sewer. So we always want to keep a strong eye on that. Projected cost for this project is $195,000. Next slide. Sesame Street water main relocation. There is a 2-inch cast iron original piece of infrastructure here too. That's going to be an ongoing theme. We selected these projects because many of them have the original infrastructure that's still in the ground, and some of them, the original infrastructure was supposed to be temporary. Like one of the temporary pipelines, this is not one, but one of the temporary pipelines that are in some of the northern water district were clay pipes. Clay pipes are not intended to remain in the ground forever. They're originally intended to utilize just how to set the stage for the final piece there. And we're finding in some of the areas of cities, those same clay pipes are still under the ground. So looking at that here for the Sesame Street water main relocation, the intent is to relocate this main to the front side of the property while upgrading it to 8 inches. So that'll be a significant increase to go from 2 inches to 8 inches while upgrading it to 8 inches. That will improve the fire flow in the vicinity. We expect this project to cost about $205,000. Onto our lift stations. I've already kind of discussed the importance of our lift station. Number 4 needs a relocation and replacement. Lift stations are very, very technical systems. We can give you a one-on-one class or get someone up here that has more specific knowledge about how they work, probably Mr. Austin or Mr. Carney or Ms. Gross. But the short and sweet of it for our purposes is we identified 3 pump stations that are in dire need of replacement. Lift station number 4 is one of them, and we anticipate the cost to be $413,775. Next slide. Lift station number 9 is the second lift station that we identified that we must address right away or as soon as possible. As you can see here, it's also a bit of an eyesore, and by replacing it, we can update it and upgrade it. There are several places in the city that I'm sure for, many of the commission and the residents are aware of that have these kind of old dated lift stations. And so you know exactly what the lift station is. Typically speaking, that's not generally how lift stations look. So one of the benefits of replacing some of these older pump stations, if you look in that first picture, that's what it looks like now. Once the improvements are made and the replacement is complete, that second photo, which is far more eye-friendly, will be the final product. The third pump station that was identified was pump station number 9, which has a significant service area. So therefore, it's going to be also the most expensive. There's a map there just to kind of show you what a great service area, what an extended service area a pump station 9 services. The allocated amount for this is $725,932. Last but not least, Pump Station 16, a smaller service area, but it also has a more extensive need and therefore a higher budget, just slightly higher than Pump Station 9. We believe that that amount is going to come in, or at least we've allocated for the budget, $800,000 for Pump Station 16. Again, we do want to stress how for those older pump stations that have these old, antiquated, dated infrastructure pieces that are out there in the community, we want to stress how this is also going to improve the visibility and the beauty of our community. If you look at that first picture, that is how Lift Station 16 currently looks. And the second picture will be, the second and the third photos will be the final stages of how it will look once the replacements are completed. Next slide. North District water distribution. Again, so we have several areas that need to be addressed that are actually the responsibility of the city of Opa-locka. If you go right across 151st Street, just north of 151st Street into Miami Gardens, going toward Northwest 37th Avenue. That entire section is Opa-locka businesses and residents, Miami Gardens businesses and residents that are actually serviced by the city of Opa-locka. So we've been a little bit behind on addressing that infrastructure. The city of Miami Gardens is prepared to update their roadway system there. So it was necessary that our Public Works Department worked with their Public Works Department, and I actually met with the City of Miami Gardens City Manager Cameron Benson to work out a schedule that will allow this to be a cheaper project for us. Because generally speaking, if you tear it up, you have to fix it. So the benefit is if they allow us to go in first, since they're already planning to redo the roadways here, then once we put these new systems in, the road's already prepared for them to come by and fix it. So that is going to be a significant savings of about $800,000 for us. So we're really grateful for the City of Miami Gardens to working with us for that, which brings the budget down for this item to $425,000. Next slide. Northwest 133rd Street sewer relocation. Again, 133rd is an area near and dear to all of our hearts, as it seems to be resilient with flooding and sewer issues. So every opportunity we can to try to mitigate that, we execute. And this is one of those projects. The existing sanitary sewer line is located within a swell on the north side of 133rd Street and has a one active 6-inch private lateral connection. Couple of things that noteworthy about that. The 6-inch is likely not sufficient to service that area. And the other issue is that it's a private lateral connection. So that means what we're able to do with that connection is limited at best. The project seeks to relocate the sanitary sewer main to the center line of the right-of-way. That will be in our service area, and reconnect the lateral services to the new sewer main. It is anticipated that a new gravity main will have a total length of approximately 600 feet. Allocated funds for this project is $400,000. Lift station flow meters. Now, again, this gets into some pretty technical stuff, but it's very, very necessary. And I'll break it down with my limited knowledge of flow meters as I can, because if I can understand it, then hopefully you guys can understand it too. Now, the flow meters are part of the lift stations, or what we sometimes colloquially say our pump station. And it's a device that measures the flow rate of wastewater or sewage as it enters or exits the lift station. And flow meters, particularly for the city of Opa-locka, is very, very, very important, because we rely on Pump Station 300 for Miami-Dade County. And we often find, as residents are aware of this and members of the commission are aware of this, and we've had some extensive conversations with regard to this, is that during certain water events, we have to toggle off our pump stations, our lift stations, because the Miami-Dade County Pump Station 300, which services the city of Opa-locka, is not always able to handle the outflows. And the way we're able to track that and keep on top of that is our flow meter. So when those flow meters are inactive or go out, or if we don't catch it in time and they bust and break, and that can be a replacement of $60,000, we're not able to identify what particular pump stations we may have to toggle off. And we may not be able to report to Miami-Dade County, hey, it's pump station 300 that's causing this backup, and we need you to address that. So I hope that gives a reasonable understanding of how these flow meters work and how necessary and needed they are. And the budget for that particular project for the lift station flow meters is $900,000. All right, next slide, please. Even more exciting and more technical is the sewer system hydraulic modeling. So this is actually a requirement that we've been going back and forth with Miami-Dade County for quite some time. There is a requirement that every 5 years, the city of Opa-locka sanitary sewer model must be updated to remain compliant with the Durham Code of Ordinance. Now, we've had a lot of changeover. Now, as often said, the staff remains the same, but we have had a lot of changeover in management, and the notices usually go to the management. So it was the understanding of the administration that these 5 years requirement is triggered by submissions from the city. However, as we tried to come in compliance with this particular requirement, the county has stated, no, once your system started running and moving forward, we're going off of our timeline. So their next deadline for us, I believe, is within 18 months. And obviously, for a project that can take up to 5 years, that's just not a significant amount of time. So we've been negotiating with the county on how to remain in compliant and getting compliant. I do believe that we made some significant progress with that, but this is obviously something, even though it's not a significant cost, that we don't want to delay on because of the time it requires to get it completed. So we've allocated $150,000 for that particular project. So just as a wrap up of all of the public works and capital improvement projects, the water and sewer projects, all of the projects that we went through individually, the total projected cost is just short of $5 million, with $4,994,707. So that leaves us a little bit of funding to do something that we love to do for our residents, and that's always improve our roadway and transportation. Next slide. The infamous Carroll Lane has been a target for improvement for the city of Opa-locka under this current administration since its inception. Carroll Lane has never been fully completed, fully developed, and that is an accomplishment that we are locking in on. So we've proposed funding of approximately $1.9 million. That would be improvements of sewer, drainage, roadway, and water lines. There are some additional technical components of this, as particularly with detailing a special district or generating funds in a certain manner that we will further discuss with the commission at a later date. But just be aware that Carroll Lane is in our targets and something that we're looking to complete. Next slide, please. So just as a rewrap, this is the total allocation and expenditures of the ARPA distribution funding. We went over the community selected projects, those projects selected by the residents, of approximately $1 million, the water and sewer projects that are needed and necessary of approximately $5 million, and the roadway and transportation projects, which total about $2 million. We've been although we were allocated up to $800,000 to spend on consulting fees, we have been very conservative with that and then moving those projects forward and doing the work in-house to maintain compliance with all ARPA regulations and guidelines. So that gives our total spending of just short of projected total spending of just short of $8 million. And that is not inclusive of the interest that we've earned off of the ARPA dollars. Next slide. And out of that $8 million allocation, we've spent approximately just over $1 million at $1,119,665.98. The bulk of that going to water and sewer projects, with a large portion of that going directly to the residents for rental assistance. And then that followed by park renovations with just short of $200,000. This concludes our ARPA presentation and our discussion and review of all of the projects. And we turn it over to the commission to give us any feedback that you may have.
Okay, we can open up the floor for questions, but I do have a couple of questions, Mr. Manager.
Yes, sir.
Because what I noticed that there was no completion dates on any of these projects. Also, you have the water and sewer projects at 600,000, parks renovation at 188 that has been spent, but on what exactly? So what I would love to see the work that has been done. Also, as it relates to Cairo Lane, the $1.9 million, I thought the city received funding from the state a couple of years ago as it relates to Cairo Lane.
Yes, sir. We did receive a state revolving loan fund of approximately, I believe, $7 million. The challenge with that is as we look to implement look to implement those dollars, we had to demonstrate to the state that we actually, and it's not actually for Carroll Lane, it's Northwest 127th Canal. And we had to demonstrate to the state that we actually own that canal so that we have site control of that canal. So when capital improvement projects went to pull those documents, we were very surprised to find that that portion of Northwest 127th Canal, the city of Opa-locka does not own. So we've been working with the county and working with the state to see if we can transfer, so that money still gets utilized in that area, see if we can transfer that money to the county for the use of those funds. Because we desperately do not want to turn those funds back. Now, the challenge with that is that the county surprisingly has responded that they want the city to agree to significant amount of expenditures, and that could potentially be millions of dollars over the course of dozens of years in order for them to get $7 million in grant funding. So we just got that response back from the county today, and we're going to be setting some requesting some one-on-one meetings with the members of the commission to discuss that and get feedback.
Okay, but that's the canal. So how does that relate to Cairo Lane? So we can't do one without the other? 'Cause it sounds like you coupled them together.
Yes, that's exactly how
That was a part of the agreement?
that's exactly how the county has coupled them. In fact, they have said, they initially said that they weren't going to allow us to, they were not going to issue us permits for us to even work on Carroll Lane until that issue was resolved.
So then how are we gonna do the 1.9?
I've had significant meetings with higher ups to allow them to agree to issue us permits while we work through this issue.
So then why can't we take the money from the funding source of the 7 million and use the 1.9 for a different project?
We're not able to utilize the money for the 7 million as we are not, we cannot demonstrate ownership for the canal.
Okay,
All right.
any other questions?
Mr. Mayor,
Commissioner Williams?
okay. Thank you for the workshop and for the detailed information. I do want to say that I do think there was a little bit of miscommunication that happened here. For starters, and I wrote some notes. The workshop mostly was a informational of projects. Basically, if you didn't know what projects we were doing and what those ARPA funds were, then now you know. If you didn't know. So it was, to me, more of informing the commission or giving us a presentation of our ARPA funds, which I believe we do know. I think the things that I wanted to hear, and we're already past the window now, and I guess we can have one-on-one meetings, is I really wanted a detail of each project and funding. So where we are in that funding, how much funds have we spent? So if you recall, the last two meetings, what I said was it was very vague, and I wanted more detail on the funding or how far the projects went. And so that part I didn't see or didn't hear in the presentation. So it was mostly, this is what we're doing, but not this is what we have done. And so I think that's what I wanted to hear. This is what we have done, and this is where, so if we're at 50%, we have another 50% to go, and this is what we need to get to the finish line. Also, I asked about RFPs and which ones were going to go out, which ones needed to go out, and what projects did not need RFPs. I didn't hear that either. And then just some of the numbers kind of didn't add up, but I wanted to know what projects needed additional that accompanied the ARPA funds, if those ARPA funds needed additional funding from the city to make sure that the projects were completed and that they were sufficient. So again, I'm thanking you, because it is more information that we received before but I did want a little bit more meat and potatoes in terms of the funding and what we've done and how far we've done and what we need to do to get to, as the mayor said, in order to complete those projects. So thank you.
Mr. Mayor.
Commissioner Kelly, I'm sorry. Commissioner Kelly?
Thank you. Yes, Mr. Manager, thank you for the information. But I'm just asking my questions and I don't know if we have time to go that deep. The timelines and the projections, as my colleague mentioned, I have been asking for as well. And I still don't see anything any different on that. Even in the package that we would probably and will be voting on, I do not see. I still see under development to be developed out to July, nearly complete. Proposals received. And again, some of this goes back from this original document, I guess from the original update plan of May 22nd. So to me, some of these should have moved the needle way more than they moved. It's nothing on the projects themselves, but where they are coming back, how close they are to get to the commission. And as my colleague said, the numbers. Because when I look at, for example, Pump Station 4 relocation, we're allocating 413, but it's going to require another 419 coming from somewhere. And I'm quite sure there is a somewhere that is coming from, but I don't really see that listed. I just know it's coming from somewhere. The other thing that concerns me with all of these is because, again, they got to be encumbered. They got to come for the commission, go to state, all those good things, and have a contract at least to be encumbered before the 31st of December. So I'm concerned about that. I'm also concerned when I looked at some of the numbers because the community did ask that you spend $250,000 on Ingram and Siegel. And the presentation talks about drainage and all of that and trails. But the reality is that's additional money. That has nothing to do with what we've allocated in terms of what has been spent. Because I don't really see that. What has been spent on Siegel specifically and Ingram specifically up to this point. I know that's talking about what we'd like to see, but even in your proposal, the additional parking spaces, future improvement not funded. And of course, we've sold that property across the street, so we don't have that parking anymore. And so now we still don't have enough parking when it's rented out or you have major functions over there. So we're in a catch-22 even now because of that transaction taking place. The other one, I'm trying to go real fast, Mr. Mayor, the rental mortgage assistance. You mentioned in your presentation, 177 residents at about $257,000 or what have you, in terms of what has been spent, allocated, et cetera. Is that program still have money in it? Mr. Mayor, to the manager.
Yes, sir. The program still does have money in it. Yes, sir.
How much money does it have left in it?
Okay. Let me go to that page, sir.
And the reason I'm saying that because it says it was 257 allocated and your number says we're at about 257.
Where it
That's why I'm
says
asking that question.
program expenditures, if we go to this slide here, it says program results as of June 24, allocation is 257,000. Programs expenditure has been 241,000. So we're looking at about $16,000 left in that program.
No, I saw that, but I want to be clear because what's on the paper and what you said is two different things. So I want to be clear which one it is. The small business micro grants, it says the selection committee can consider special projects for eligibility. What are those special projects? And if you don't have it laid out now, you can give it to us.
Certainly.
Because I'm always concerned with giving out money. We have those kind of caveats. With regard to some of the other relocation of the mains and meters, again, the timelines for the improvement, especially when it comes to Sesame Street, you did mention it, and we're all excited. but how the timelines for the improvement and the relocation of the water line, of the relocation as opposed to the roadways, to make sure they connect, you don't have a disconnect with them. So that's another question and concern I have. And also on the North District water distribution, where are we on the contract? In the outline, it says under the other projects, it says that it's under contract. And again, this has been referenced since May 22nd. So if it's under contract, where are we at? Has it been signed? And when will that work start?
So we can get you a timeline on each, on that, to get you that specifics.
Okay, and my last question, I'm trying to go fast here. So there is $500,000 worth of interest from ARPA that can be used really for anything. You've spent about $7,300 on consultants, but there's $500,000 of interest to be used. Because I haven't seen anything proposed yet. What is the administration proposing to do with that $500,000 interest? Because it can be used really for anything. It doesn't have any kind of restrictions on it, whether it's regular governmental use, doesn't even have to be infrastructure. So I have not seen, and I'd like to see something presented to the commission, what the administration would like to do with it, so that we can make sure that's captured as well, even though it doesn't have the same timelines. To me, and I know we're going to be talking about this in voting, but I'm still concerned because I don't see timelines and where we are, even though, we're about to vote. I was hoping to get that tonight in the workshop. That's why I didn't spend time on it in my briefing. Where we are, so I hope staff is ready to give those answers, where we are with those RFPs and those timelines. So when we get ready to vote on it, we will have that information. I'm going to stop, Mr. Mayor, because I know we got to move on. Thank you. Thank you.
No problem. Any other questions to the manager as it relates to the ARPA funding?
Really quick, Mr. Mayor,
Commissioner Wade?
it sounds like we're all on the same page with what we asked for and what we need. If we can just get the details, the timelines, the things, I think it's just, and I keep circling back to the word communication. I think there's a misstep or mishap or something with the communication. Almost you can just go back to the commission meeting and see and ask and hear what we've been asking. It's little, I want to keep using the word disheartening, but I mean, we're asking for things and we're not getting it. I don't want to be, go around that corner, but I was really, really, really hoping that this would be that workshop that we would get more of the meat and potatoes and the things that we're seeing. So it almost makes me think that that information is probably not readily available to even give us. So I would ask that this week, I don't know, Mr. Mayor, that this week, the deadline for us to have that full report.
But the issue is, and I'm
We're
glad you brought it up,
yeah,
is we're gonna vote on
we're
it
voting, I know.
tonight. Mr. Manager, this is the first meeting in July. We have another one. Can you defer this then when we get there? To add that information?
Absolutely.
Okay. But we'll discuss that when we get to the commission meeting itself. All right, I'm sorry, Commissioner Williams. All right, any other questions or concerns to the manager?
My sentiments are the same as everybody else's, so I won't drag that on.
All right, no problem. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Moved by Vice Mayor, second by Commissioner Williams. This meeting is adjourned. If you all would give us about 5 minutes recess and then we'll start our regular